read once that two German generals came over to watch our Civil War. Because back then that's how you studied war. If you were a general, you went to where a war was being fought and watched to see what the winners did right and the losers did wrong. And they went back home and told the Emperor of Germany at the time, whatever you do, don't ever allow the Americans to get involved in one of our wars. Those people are insane. Because they were used to that idea, big armies marching towards each other, a couple hundred men getting killed, and then the armies break apart and move on. We stood there for 3 days. One battle. Pounding away at each other. Charging into lines that, well, who would do something like that? And you know what? He proved to be right, by the way, those generals. Because when World War I broke, big chunk of our infantry, when they landed in England, they would get off the boat and somebody would hand them a rifle. It's the first time they ever touched a rifle. World War I, they were trained often with broomsticks or 2x4s, how to carry one, not how to fire one. First time most of them fired their rifle was in battle. And what did we do? Charged right in. And why? Because we're nuts. Because interestingly enough, quite a few officers, when word of that comment leaked back to America, were proud of it. Darn right, we're nuts, leave us alone. Well, they fought and they fought and they fought, and the war itself would go on for another 2 years after that. More dead in one day than most European battles would see in European wars would see in 10 years. And we went on for 2 more years, and it got bloodier. Now, and they decided that they would dedicate Soldiers National Cemetery in October. That's the big cemetery in Gettysburg. The town had asked some prominent orator of the time to come and talk. And he said he didn't think it was appropriate for just him to come and talk. That there were other more prominent orators, and shouldn't the president be there? And the town said, don't really see why. But he convinced them otherwise, which proved he was a great orator. And they decided to postpone it until November 19th. Now, we live in an age of sound bites. Remember the first Superman movie that came out with Christopher Reeves? What a great sound bite, what a tag it had with it. You will believe a man can fly. Star Wars, may the Force be with you. Read a historical novel about a guy who fought in the Napoleonic Wars, and the tagline on the back of it, history comes dangerously alive. You read that and you think, oh, I got to read more about this. So we live in an age of sound bites. I've even seen places where they said, you need to get your entire concept. I don't care if you're trying to pitch national strategy, healthcare policy, a book, a movie, whatever. Get it down to 15 words. And once you got it down to that, get it down to 7. Because most people, that's what they'll pay attention to, is 7 words. You go to that 8th word and they've already forgot what the first one is, I guess. That's the era we live in. But then again, we've got TV and iPods and cell phones and movies and video games and tons of things for entertainment purposes. We've got a busy schedule and no time for everything. We even complain that minute rice takes 5 minutes to cook. It's a lie, the box says minute rice. But back in 1863, anybody getting up to give a speech was expected to go at least an hour. That was a sign of brilliance, that you could keep a crowd interested for at least an hour. Some of those talks went on for 2 hours. Political rallies could go on all day long and maybe have 3 speakers. That's what people wanted. That's what people expected. That's what people looked forward to. So on that November 19th, first speaker got up and talked and talked and talked. I believe it was close to 2 hours he spoke. We've all heard of Gettysburg. We've all heard of the battle. What's the name of that first speaker? What did he talk about? Talked for 2 hours. What was it about? Who gave the Gettysburg Address? Lincoln. It was 248 words long. And when it was over, the crowd didn't know what to do. He just gave his short little talk and sat down. They all were settled in for at least a 2-hour talk. The next speaker was surprised, had to jump up. The following day, newspapers talked about what a lousy speech it was, and we don't even know why the president was invited. And the gentleman who gave the first talk hunted down those reporters who talked about how lousy Lincoln's speech was and called them all idiots. Politely. But he called them all idiots. He said, long after the world forgets that there was ever a fight here at Gettysburg, they will remember President Lincoln's words. Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. If he had stopped there, he'd have been brilliant. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that their nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, the last full measure of devotion. Sorry, I skipped a line. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. "248 words to sum up so much, so elegantly. And it is well worth always remembering these words and the fact that a lot of brave people have fought, have bled, have died for freedom. As I was thinking about this, I was thinking back to when I started high school, Beechcroft High School. The first year it was open, 8th grade. And there was talk of blowing up the buses, turning them over, setting them on fire, shooting at them. Desegregation. Courts had ordered that you had to desegregate the schools, and there were people who didn't want it. They wanted separate but equal, which means that we separate people off into their own place, but make sure they have the same level of education. And then not today, it's a Sunday, tomorrow, I could drive back past Beechcroft and see people of all kinds of ethnic backgrounds walking together, talking together, best friends, dating, and not thinking twice about what color skin is. The same dedication, devotion that went into people fighting for freedom in the Civil War went into those who marched for equality, bled, suffered, died for that equality. Went into somebody who just didn't want to sit in the back of the bus. A lot of people have struggled for those rights and freedoms that so many of us take for granted, that so many of us ignore. And as President Lincoln said, it is up to each of us, to continue that devotion. Keep an eye on our country. This is not the politicians' country, no matter what political party may be in power, in what office, at what time, whatever. It's not their country. It's our country. And it's for each of us to be willing to give that sacrifice. You don't have to march into a entrenched barbed wire machine gun nest, nor do you have to set one up. But if you see somebody's rights being taken away, you shouldn't be quiet about it. Not that I really have to worry about this group being quiet. But please always remember that if they take away your neighbor's rights, yours are next. So you better stand up for them. You better stand up for what's right. There's been a lot of people around the world through history who wanted to destroy what we're trying to build here. And I think that, by the way, is an important point we must never forget. We're still building America. America is a project that's never completed. One of the most brilliant things the creators of the Constitution and our laws did was to put in place the power to change. We can add things to the Constitution if we need to. We can take things out if we need to. Remove amendments. We have the power to change things. We have the power to say, that's not right. Women aren't allowed to vote? That's not right. Let's pass an amendment to the Constitution. That was a fight that occurred in the 1920s. Wasn't really that long ago in history. But do you know there are places in India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, where women aren't allowed to own property? There was a banker in, I believe it was northern India, who set up a bank only for women. Only women were allowed to go into the bank, only them were allowed to create bank accounts. He would get loans for them, help them buy property. Not only did he get death threats, but the local government wanted to try to pass laws to stop him. We may argue, we may shout, we may fight. We may go to war. Although I have to admit, I am fairly proud of our little country. 200 plus years, one civil war. Most countries are lucky to have gone 20 years without a civil war. Some countries, their civil war has been lasting for 20 years. But we usually find a way to make it work. We usually try to find a way to make it better. And as I said, there are people all over the world throughout history that have tried to stop us, destroy us, tell us how wrong we are. But you know what? It was never about us. It's about them. You come up with a system that's failing, you can't come out and say, well, we tried. I was wrong. Dictatorship didn't work. Let's try kinghood instead. Isn't it much easier to come out and say, it's America's fault. They did it to us. Lousy democracy. It is a strange, odd little country. I still firmly do believe that anybody can grow up to be president. Teja, that's your job. Be president. I'd probably vote for you. Maybe. We have a country where, well, we're not perfect, but there definitely are still areas of bigotry and prejudice. It's not just white people, all colors. But a country that tries to fix its problems. They struggle and strain, but we try. We may fuss and feud, but we work together. We feud and fuss, and we may have our problems, and we may have things that we still need to change and to fix, and freedoms that we may need to make sure are still there. But when we pull together, when we work together as a country, we can work miracles. Absolute miracles. And that's what I want all of us to carry with us, to remember at all times. We may be nuts. Other people may not understand us. We may feud and fuss and fight and carry on with one another. We generally try to find the way to do the right thing. We generally try to find the way to bring freedom to others. When we work side by side with each other, it's stunning what we can accomplish. Absolutely amazing. And working together, we can make sure that freedom extends to all Americans. It stays in place, that it's never taken from us. Because trust me, if 300 million people all say they want the same thing, it's going to happen. And if people who can be handed broomsticks for training can charge machine gun nests less than a year later, come together in horrible emergencies. September 11th, most recent horrible example. The footage of that day, of how many people rushed in to help. That's what was stunning. When we work together, nothing's impossible. Carry that in your hearts and your minds. That dedication, that devotion. Struggle and strain, fuss and feud, argue though we might. Generally work towards the good. It's that old saying, it's me against you, it's going to be me. If it's us against them, they better look out. Pulling together, America the Beautiful.